Hi friends, this is Angelica. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a few projects that I made using products from the Greetery's All That Glitters collection, and this collection will be in the Greetery shop tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I am feeling a bit under the weather. I did get really sick. I got really sick and had to have some medical intervention. So please excuse my voice and my energy. I am still in the healing process, but I really wanted to get this video out with the release. So this first die that we're going to look at is the Snipped Snowflakes 1 die. And I have some shimmer cardstock here. It is a pretty heavy weight. I would say 80 pounds, and it has a linen texture to it. It's really pretty in person, but I liked the shimmer. I thought that would help make really pretty snowflake ornaments. So this is my die cut machine. For those who aren't into die cutting, I take the metal die, I run it through the die cut machine, and I get these really pretty die cuts. So I have a paper piercer. I'm going to poke out all the small pieces of the snowflakes and then fold all of them in half. I did die cut 12 snowflakes, and I got three snowflakes of each size out of one 8.5 by 12 paper, or 8.5 by 11 paper. I have 3 snowflakes on screen right now. These are the large snowflakes, and I'm adding glue to one side of the folded snowflake, and I'm going to attach a second snowflake on top of the glue. Now, if I was to make these ornaments again, I don't think I would use this paper. It is really pretty, but I would first of all use a lighter weight paper, and then I wouldn't use a textured paper because it did take a little while to get the glue to bond. And I'm using art glitter glue, which is a glue that just takes seconds to bond good, to dry. And this did take me a little while. So just know that if you're using paper that's got a shimmer to it or a texture to it, it's just going to take the glue a little bit longer to grip both of the papers. Now I have the third snowflake that I added glue to. I'm going to attach that to the other 2 snowflakes, make sure I have the pieces lined up. And my main concern when I'm lining up the pieces is to have the top and the bottom like in perfect position, just because they're going to make a really pretty like honeycomb style look once this snowflake is completely done. So I have this group of 3 snowflakes glued together. I'm just going to put my acrylic block on top, let that glue fully dry. I'm going to do this 3 more times with the other 9 snowflakes, and then I will start gluing the groups together. Now, I know I'm not inventing the wheel here. I just wanted to show that this is a really fun option to do with all of the snowflakes in this release. There's 3 different sets of snowflakes. There's also stars that you can do this with too, that's in the release. I didn't have time to do all of them in this style, but I did want to just kind of let you know that this is what you can do if you want to have a project to do with the grandkids or with your kids during Christmas break. This is really fun. You know, just have a whole bunch of die cuts out on the table, some Christmas music in the background, and I found this really peaceful. And of course, while I was doing the large one, I also had a small one going too. I did it in the same style. I mean, exactly the same. I just did the smaller one off screen. So I have all 12 snowflakes glued. I'm actually going to put something heavy on top of those snowflakes and just let the glue dry for about an hour. Once I was ready to assemble or close the snowflake up, I just glued the ends together, and this did take a lot of patience because I couldn't put something heavy on top of the snowflake just to let the glue bond that way. So I had to hold the snowflake for a little while. And I mean, okay, not a little while, like maybe a minute, if that. And once I was comfortable with the paper not pulling away when I let go of it, I just clamped it with some reverse tweezers. You can use like little clothespins you can get at the craft store, or whatever you use to hold things together. Paper clips, I guess, would work. So here I have my reverse tweezers out. So I'm just going to let those reverse tweezers hold the pieces together for a couple minutes, and then once the glue is dry, then you can just start fluffing up the pieces, because they have been sitting under something heavy, so they did need help like getting into place. So I just played around with it for a while just to fluff it up, and I just really like how these ornaments turned out. I did see Crate and Barrel has a lot of these ornaments. Well, they have a Christmas tree decorated with these kind of ornaments on their website right now. So this is definitely on trend, and you get to make your own. I love it. I just love this idea. I love these dies, and you just get to make your own in the comfort in your own home. I was hoping to have my Christmas tree up this week so I can take final pictures of these on the tree, but that obviously did not happen. So here is just my final picture I did on my table, and now we're going to move on to a mixed media project. I found this paper pad at Hobby Lobby about 2 months ago in the scrapbooking section. I mean, it was like immediately in my cart. I love this vintage look, the distressed look. The paper is beautiful. It has a linen look to it, so it has a beautiful texture when you're touching it. It's single-sided and it's not too heavy. I'm also going to be using 5x7 canvas board. These come in packs of 5 in the fine arts department at Hobby Lobby, and they're maybe $4 or $5 for all 5 together. So I cut paper down to 5x7 to put on top of the board. And I'm brushing the board with Liquitex matte medium, and I'm also putting some on the back of the paper, and I'm using a inexpensive paintbrush just to brush that adhesive all over, and then I will attach the paper to the board. And I have a scraper on my workspace too, and that's just to help me make sure to get all of, if there's any air bubbles underneath the paper, just to make sure I have them out and that the board and the paper are bonded really nicely. So I'm using a pretty good amount of pressure, but not too hard because I didn't want to rip the paper. Once I was finished doing that, I brushed on one thin layer of Liquitex on top of the paper. I'm not sure if that was a necessary step. I don't know. I just did it out of habit because I'm usually adding something on top of the paper. So I did brush some Liquitex on top, and then I put the board aside to dry. Liquitex does take a little while to dry. If you let it dry on its own, I mean, I went upstairs and did some stuff, but it takes about an hour, maybe 2 hours to dry unless you use your blow dryer, which I am going to use my blow dryer a lot in this project. And I'm using my blow dryer, not a heat tool, because you don't want to have a lot of heat for some of the stuff that we're going to do. So I like the way the board looks. This is what I'm going to put it aside. Actually, I'm going to do the other 2 boards, and then I went and did my other projects that I had to do. This board, the paper wasn't, it was a little bit longer than the board, so I'm just using some sandpaper just to get those longer edges off of the board. And then we're going to move on to Crackle paste. So I have just been introduced to Tim Holtz Distress Crackle paste, and this is the opaque Crackle. I'm used to either two part or 2 components Crackle, or Crackle that goes in between layers of paint. So I was really excited to try this out, and I've already done another project with this Crackle paste. So if you're interested in seeing that, I will leave a link here on screen so you can check that out. So what I'm doing here is I just have a plastic spatula, and I'm spreading the Crackle around the edges. I'm not doing thick. You can see through the paste. You can see the paper. So I'm putting a pretty thin layer of this paste around the edges and kind of towards the middle, but I'm going to put the snowflake in the middle, so there was no reason to put the Crackle in the middle. Plus, it just helps show the pattern paper a little bit. Now I have my blow dryer out, and I had it on low and on medium heat, well, in between medium heat and cool, just to get that to dry pretty quickly. And then now I have my spray box out, and I sprayed it with ice spruce distress oxide spray, and then I hit it with a few sprays of water and just let that ink kind of dribble down. I didn't really know what I was doing here. I don't know if I picked the right color either. So, and this was all practice. Was practicing, learning as I go. So I thought I'd pick up a little bit more of the ink, spray, but this time do a pretty heavy hand. And it really emphasized the cracks, but it also, I thought it just looked really muddy. So was not a fan. But I still kept the board. I was ready just to toss it and just stick with the other two boards. But then, since this was a board I wasn't planning on using, I thought I would just play around more with it. So you can see the cracks. They're really pretty. But the iced spruce just was not giving me the winter feel that I wanted. In my head, that's what I was thinking I wanted to do. So you can see the cracks on this music paper with nothing on the Crackle paste. I did want to emphasize the Crackle paste, so I pulled out a brush that I use when I'm working with black wax. I use Debbie Designs Diaries black wax. A distress crayon would be really cool here too, or like an archival ink. I don't know if I would use the distress ink because I don't know what the pigments do, if they're light fast or how long they hang out. Now I'm planning to gift this, so I don't want the colors to fade, in a year or two. So I just went with the black wax, but I just wanted to emphasize the cracks around the edges. I'm going to do this with the third board too. But back to this board, I did decide to see what it would look like with a second layer of Crackle. I've never put 2 layers of Crackle on anything, and so I just spread it out and made it really look like peeled paint. I did use a heavier hand, and I worked that paste to the middle of the board. And this paste also really wasn't that expensive. I think the jar was $6 or $7. I can't remember, but I will link the jar down below if you're interested. And then there's also transparent paste too. That is still unopened. I have not used that one yet, so keep your eye out. I probably will be playing with that soon. And here's the third board, and I'm actually just using the wax that's on the brush. I didn't even add any more wax to it. And I love that pop of red in the upper right corner. I just put the Crackle paste over the flower, and yeah, I really like how that turned out. Okay, so now we're going to move on to snowflakes. Now, I've already die cut snowflakes off screen, and I used this Snipped Snowflakes number 3 die, and there's 2 snowflakes in this die set, the bigger one and the small one. I'm using Weathered Wood Distress ink, and I just put a few blops of it down on my mixed media mat and sprayed it with water, and I'm just going to ink smush the snowflakes into the ink. If you don't like to get your fingers dirty, definitely put on some gloves here because they are going to get dirty. This ink does not stain as bad as the Distress Oxide inks stain. Well, at least for me. I made an underground scene a couple years ago, and I'm still pretty traumatized over it. I used like broken china, and I used some pretty bold blues and greens to ink smush an undersea scene, and my fingers were stained for like 2 days. It was ridiculous. So I used my heat tool to speed up the drying process for the paper, and then now I'm going to ink smush again with the ink that's still on my mat. And I should mention the paper that I'm using is Canson watercolor paper. This paper you can find at any craft store. I believe it's at Walmart. It's on Amazon. It's fairly inexpensive. You can use a coupon at a craft store if you want. But this is my go-to paper when I'm doing mixed media projects like this. I don't use it when I'm watercoloring because it's not cotton paper, but I mean, it really handles the abuse that I put my paper through when I'm doing mixed media projects like this. I glued the snowflakes together and now I have my spray box out and I'm going to use Distress Resist spray. I'm going to spray the snowflake with that. I saw Tim Holtz do this in one of his videos a couple years ago, and I've always used the Distress spray to, like on snow scenes, just you spray it, you let it dry, or you dry it, and then you can ink over it, and then once you rub over the sprayed parts, the ink rubs off. So I didn't really know what the component was in this spray. I had no idea what it was, but he said it was adhesive. It was like glue. And so you can use a paintbrush if you want, but I liked the spray because it comes out clumpy. And then I poured the Distress glitter over the spray, and now I'm using my heat tool. I wanted to see how it would react with super hot heat. The Distress spray and the Resist spray and the glitter, and it gave such a lovely texture. It kind of bubbled a little bit. It made the paper really crispy and strong. I loved it, but I thought I would just take it one more level up, and now I'm brushing on Mod Podge. And this is just the matte yellow bottle Mod Podge. And I got a inexpensive paintbrush, quickly adding that Mod Podge. Now I'm going to pour more glitter over the snowflake, and I'm using the same Distress Clear Rock Candy Clear Glitter, excuse me. And I'll leave a link to this glitter down in the description too. You see me use this glitter all the time, especially with my Christmas projects. It's so beautiful in person. It's just so sparkly. So hit it one more time with my heat tool. Again, it just bubbled and just gave another layer of texture. So this paper is so sturdy right now. It's thick, it's sparkly, and it's stunning in person. Now it's time to attach these to the boards, and I'm using Ranger Multi-Medium Matte in it with a needlepoint top to add the adhesive to the back of the snowflake, and I'm going to glue those right onto the board. Now I was planning on framing these boards, so I should have put them in the frame first and then added the snowflake, because I ended up adding the snowflake a little too high on a couple of these boards. This snowflake was fine. And by the way, I loved how this turned out with that second layer of Crackle. The snowflake kind of blends into it here on screen, but in person, oh, it is stunning. It just looks so old. The Crackle is a little chipped here and there, kind of pulling off of the board, and it's just beautiful. I love it. But these two boards, I put the snowflake up just a little too high. So to fill in the bottom part, I pulled out the Greetery's Thin Alphabet set. It's the slim alphabet die set, and I die cut several letters to make the words Merry and Noel. And before I attached the letters to the board, I did ink smush them a little bit so they match the snowflake. And I'm also using Canson watercolor paper here too. I die cut each letter 3 times and glued the pieces together just so there was a little dimension to them. And then I used the Ranger Multi-Medium Matte again to attach them to the board. To make sure that I have the letters positioned correctly this time, I'm using my Make Art Station, which is a metal grid board, and it comes with 4 large magnets, and then the 0 center ruler is also a magnet. So this is a tool that I use quite often in my craft room, especially when I need to center my pieces like I just did. Once the matte medium was dry, I put a little bit more on top of the letters and then added glitter so the letters were just as sparkly as the snowflake, and that finishes the projects. So my first picture that I'm going to show the final pictures now, but the first picture is just the mattes, and I just love how these turned out. I did buy some clear large jewels to put in middle of the snowflakes, but I just thought, you know, they're so pretty on their own. So I skipped the jewels and then stuck them in their frames. So I have a feeling that this one is going to go on my mantle, and then I will gift the other two. But I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear what you think of these projects. Like I said, these dies are in the new All That Glitters release, and then that will be in the Greetery shop tomorrow. So I will have affiliate links down below. I do get a small commission if you shop my links, but that's at no cost to you. And the Greetery links will go live tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. That is all that I have for today. I'm going to go lay down and get some rest. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will be back shortly with another video. Take care, friends.